Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Rock. I'm in the IT group, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a paper I'm working on called Engineering Value, the Returns to Technological Talent and Investments in Artificial Intelligence. So, thank you very much to Hillary and Davin for organizing. It's exciting to get to show you guys what I've been up to. So this is the first of 4 papers in my dissertation, kind of getting at what is AI doing to the economy, how is it affecting workers, productivity, jobs, and then this is going to focus on the AI side of talent and what engineers are worth to firms. So this is Jeff Dean. He's what you'd call an engineer's engineer. He's one of 2 engineers at Google whose skills go to level 11 in their internal categorization system. And he is the brain behind Google Brain. He built TensorFlow, which came out of a system called Disbelief, that is an open source framework for implementing machine learning models that went across the company. They figured, based on our old infrastructure projects where we had to train people to use things as they came on, why not open source this and make this the standard? And it had a very large effect on firms via the alleviation of a talent bottleneck. So I'm going to get into what the talent bottleneck alleviation did to firm value, but also I want to ask the question, what are engineers worth to companies, and why is it that technology can help us understand a technological discontinuity can help us understand how firms and workers split rents. Okay, so the Tensorflow launch is a surprising move. This is, among his other projects, been one of the most valuable ones to Google. Jeff Dean's a millionaire, but he's not a billionaire. So a way of looking at this question is, why aren't the millionaire engineers billionaires? Why aren't they getting the full value of their innovations? Could be that Jeff's really bad at rent capture, not good at negotiating, or maybe the next best engineer is a little bit better than Google would have you believe. Maybe he doesn't want to start his own company. He wants to work with the cool tools and not necessarily bother with marketing, sales, that kind of thing. Many different explanations of this, but all of these lead to employer capture of the value of his human capital. And then they also hinge on a theory of what's firm specific here. What can Google do as an employer that no other employer can do? Okay, so first I'm going to show you some theory for how you build a demand curve where the firm has charge over what you do. Some of it's going to be firm specific, some of it's going to be stuff that other people would pay for, and the firm can optimally choose how to assign you to different tasks. I'm going to use LinkedIn. I have over 180 million position records, the resume data, as well as 52 million skills records that I can put at the level of public firms, join that to financial data, and get an idea of how are these skills and human capital measures affecting the value of the firm. So the punchline, what happened? Well, when Google launches TensorFlow, they basically rain money down on everybody who uses AI. So the 58th percentile of firms on down, they don't use AI at all at that point. This is the end of 2015. But for the firms in the rest of the 3rd quintile, the 4th quintile, and the 5th quintile, you see this 4 to 7% boost in market value, adjusting for the kinds of other complementary investment that you'd think you'd need to make money off of AI. And the middle quintile firms, there's a little bit of a pre-trend in that top quintile, but those middle quintile firms, they get a boost where they catch up for 1 quarter and then it goes away. They're basically the same relative to their non-AI using peers. So then what about the average question, not just TensorFlow engineers, but engineers in general? Is there free money out there? Can you hire them and increase firm value? I don't find evidence of that. On the margin, not really. But on average, I find that the price the market assigns to engineers is about 850 grand each. So that's a prediction question. It's not a causality question. The causality question is the marginal one. If I have time, I'll get into those results, but I'm going to focus on the TensorFlow stuff. Okay, so we know that TensorFlow is part of a tradition of technological labor being a driver of productivity and profitability. Typically, you make arguments around intangible asset creation and co-invention for what the firm can appropriate. There's a lot of reasons why the firm can appropriate something. So there's the scientists paying to be scientists kind of argument. What do they like doing? There's also monopsony power. I'm going to show you a different version of monopsony power. It's not Walmart's the only employer. They restrict employment and lower wages. It's Walmart gets to decide what its workers do. And on the margin, they compete with each other, and that lets that firm-specific aspect of what they do get captured by their employer. Okay, and then at the same time, from a policy perspective, especially in technology, we're kind of concerned about what kind of bottlenecks are out there. Is there market value to be had on the table? And the tools are changing in a big way, so you need that technological talent. Besides AI or AWS allowing you to stand up a tech stack that used to take 3 years and a couple weeks now. There's CRISPR. You can edit babies to make them immune to HIV, things like that. Sam can tell you more about that if you want to talk with her. And AI might be a way to solve this problem that some ideas are getting harder to find. Okay, so before I get into all the effects, it helps to kind of go over how you value a firm. The value of a firm is the sum of the value of its assets. That's this summation of lambdas times k's. Lambdas are prices, k's are capital varieties. But that lambda is not just what you pay. So if I buy $100 of computers and they're sitting on my loading dock, the value that I'm going to get once I've integrated those computers into my organization is much higher. So if I can do that for $100, make those assets productive, and my next best competitor can only do it for $200, that difference of 100 I get to keep. So that lambda is how much I paid plus the difference I have over my next best competitor. All right. Interestingly, when you run this, when you solve this dynamic program to get that value, labor drops out. So the assumption is that labor is perfectly flexible. Marginal workers, average workers, same value and is equal to the wage. That's a little weird. I'm going to relax that. Well, it doesn't seem really intuitive for how we think about human capital. So Herb Simon has a useful quote for this. He says that employees agree to do over the life of the contract what they are ordered to do, but the orders will not be issued until some time after the contract is negotiated. So that opens up an incomplete contracting problem where you can get a downward sloping demand curve. And I'm going to just kind of summarize the results of the theory in the paper. I'm going to say that the firms can pick this parameter alpha, and that's your mixture between how much firm-specific stuff you do and how much general stuff you do. General stuff is things that anybody will pay you for. So an example of a firm-specific thing, there's maybe, 2, 3 firms in the world that care about optimizing a newsfeed, right? So I'm going to have you work on more newsfeed things if you're a really productive engineer. If it's just updating code, getting some maintenance done, I might have you work on the more general stuff. So that left-hand side of the term, that's the firm-specific piece. The right-hand side of the wage, that's the general stuff that, say, the worker gets all of. And that's how you get this downward sloping demand curve. And that's why if you have a supply shock like TensorFlow does in expectation, you're going to increase how much market value the firm gets by this little red triangle. Okay, so I use LinkedIn. I know it's not representative. I can answer questions about how I adjust for that. This is Jackie, my co-author. I'm going to count up how much education she's got, include that, how many years of education at the firm. I've also got her skills data. Okay, so what does deep learning do? You have this watershed moment with ImageNet where you can use convolutional neural nets to classify images super well, but there's many other applications. When TensorFlow launches, it's a huge shock. Everybody's kind of surprised that they took this 8 years ahead technology and made it available to everyone. And it takes code that looks like this. This is one small piece of one piece of the optimizer function, and you can train an entire neural net to classify images with this much code. So pretty astonishing difference. Democratizes the technology. I'm sure you all know that this is a cucumber categorizer that a farmer in Japan made. He and his mom were dumping curvy cucumbers, large cucumbers into different boxes. He decided that's not fun to do, so he built a TensorFlow system to do it about 6 months after it comes out. All right, so what TensorFlow is great for is you write the same code once, it runs on all sorts of different platforms, it's easy to use, really just makes it so that any coder can be a deep learning engineer. When before, deep learning engineers were making like $2 million a year. Now they make $300,000, $400,000 a year. Still a lot, still diffusing, but it is dominant as far as a platform for doing deep learning. This is kind of your GitHub star count. TensorFlow takes off. We had Jeff Dean on campus here, and he actually copped to the fact that this is about talent. So he said the solution is ML expertise plus data plus computation. Google sells a lot of the latter two things. Can they make it just that the solution is the things that they sell? Seems like a pretty good business plan. Democratizing the talent. All right, so you do get this launch, and then on LinkedIn, people start adding up skills. We use machine learning and deep learning to figure out which clusters of skills count for AI. I can get into that, perhaps offline, but basically you get the spatial model. We trace some skills through, so we know that's the AI cluster, that's the robotics cluster. You get pretty reasonable things. Here's robotics. Economics has got Stata. Data science has R, if you want to argue over that one. And what I find is, yeah, indeed, across all firms, post TensorFlow, upping if you were to double your TensorFlow, if you were to double your AI skills post TensorFlow, you get another $2 billion in market value. The problem is, you see this jump right afterward in the market value of those firms. Maybe that's because of high flyers. So looking at these different quintiles, yeah, you can see in blue or in green at the top there, the top quintile has got a bit of a pre-trend relative to the non-AI using baseline. But those fourth and third quintile firms, they're kind of getting a pop only once around the launch of TensorFlow. And that's adjusting for indices on data science, cloud computing, big data. There's firm fixed effects, and you're soaking up a lot of the heterogeneity. So if you take those top firms out, it's still the case that for the other ones, they gain about $350 million if you were to double their AI intensity. Okay, so this set of plots is how you make and lose friends in a business school. Some placebo checks. We've got data science, kind of positive, but not as much. There's no jump, by the way. This is linear regression. There's no jump. It's pretty much zero. Management has negative point estimates. This is destroying value, I guess. Managers are good negotiators. Marketing folks, they're consistently adding value to companies in a statistically significant way, but there's no hop around TensorFlow. Okay, so we got pretty good evidence that there's this supply shock. These engineers are going to be available. The firm's market value increases, showing that the firms are sharing in the human capital investments of their workers. Okay, so what about general engineering value? If you use a market value decomposition, this is just a linear regression of market value on the stuff we can observe that they have as assets. You get that it's about this 0.855 number over here in the middle. It's a little hard to see, but that's $855,000 per engineer. And that's controlling for your industry time effects. You don't want to control for the firm necessarily because that makes the firm perfectly competitive with itself. And I'm trying to adjust for that, what you can do better than your competitors' effects. So that's why I picked that number. If you do firm fixed effects, you get kind of a similar point estimate, but a lower one. And now, I don't have time to go through the different instruments I use to get at the causal value, but they're basically mixed. Sometimes the point estimates go up. They're a lot larger. Sometimes they go down, and they're significant. I think across all these different lates, it's a little bit hard to tell that engineers are bottlenecks. So you think you're probably somewhere around here on the curve, a little flatter. Okay, so punchline. TensorFlow caused this 4 to 7% market value increase and democratized AI technology. Engineers are worth a lot as a price, but not on the margin. And it seems like Jeff Dean's ingenuity is partially shared or the rents to that are shared with his employer. All right, thanks very much.